It is now the year 2026, which in binary is 11111101010. In base 8 is expressed as 3752. In base 42, that would be 16 and in a digital prison on the internet, well, that would be vaguely scientific. I am the rate of change of energy times the radius of energy constant, which doesn't make any sense, so call me Derek. Here's an imaginary unit in either mathematics or electrical engineering. Either way, give it mass, makes it Jim the scientist. Hi, Jim.
I mean, I'm as real as you want me to be.
And the bounded region of an integral approximated numerically would be a convoluted way to introduce our guest this week, Brian. Hi, Brian.
Hey, I mean, I only keep it 100, so I'm a stationary number.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, this is the show where listeners send in questions to hear our vaguely scientific answers, and who knows, we might even get some of those answers right. But first, hold on, just checking something. Nope, cybernetic security guard programs are still there. So it's time for the fun science fact of the day. Jim?
All right, so the Neptunian Desert is a region very close to a parent star where Neptune-sized planets are unable to survive for very long. High temperatures and strong solar winds strip the atmospheres of these planets, leaving behind a solid core, which are called Chthonian planets, which I think might have been another fun science fact of the day at some point.
I like the term Chthonian planet. I know that it doesn't mean this, but it makes me think of Cthulhu, and therefore it makes it sound ominous to me.
Yeah. Now, it's very interesting because I was reading about exoplanets, and it's just, they're not big enough to hold onto their atmosphere when they get really close to a star. Like a Jupiter-sized planet can hold its atmosphere for a while, but not the little ones, not the little guys.
Well, that makes sense.
You calling it a Chthonian core and talking about how it was stripped away, I'm picturing it looks like a liquid mercury and it's foreboding. Should be avoided.
Yeah. I always think of it as like a big lump of coal. I don't know why. I just imagine like a black desert mess. I would love to see what one of these things looks like.
Well, speaking of a desert mess, that was just a really good one. Thanks,
that was a
Jim.
really good one.
Question 1 this week, which I think we should tackle, is how might human society adapt if the water-to-land balance of Earth shifted closer to either extreme? So either more water or more land.
I think it's always fun to start with the fact that if there's more water, then all the existing coastal cities will just be underwater.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if there's less water, they are no longer coastal cities.
Oh, that's true.
An interesting part. So they can't receive like shipments. So there will be issues for them. So when I was thinking about this, first thing I had to do was look up theoretically if the two main things that changed the sea level, from what I can tell, is mostly glaciers and ice shelves, and then also the moving of the tectonic plates are the two big things. Glaciers and ice shelves has a much bigger, more immediate effect, and so from what I can tell, our current level is about 130 meters higher than a glacier-caused minimum, and we're about 70 meters lower than if all the ice sheets melted right now.
Oh,
that's a lot of meters, actually.
It's a lot of meters, but then I was looking at topographical maps, and I was we would lose Florida here in America and Louisiana, and as you said, all the coastal cities, but I don't think it would affect our ability to grow crops and stuff as much as I thought it might.
Okay, then. Interesting.
I'm happy to be corrected on that thought.
Yeah, I mean, like the center of the continent is not going to be underwater at 70 meters.
Yeah.
Actually, I was really interested in looking because you said 70 meters specifically, and I was wondering what the maximum elevation of Panama is. I think I need to type in elevation. Hold on. Oh, that's a lot of meters, actually.
It's too many meters.
Yeah. Well, because I was interested in the maximum elevation of Panama, which appears to be around 3,000 and some meters, which is a pretty respectable amount, more than 70.
Yeah, there's a mountain range going through, I guess.
But it would be interesting. Well, maybe not interesting. It'd be catastrophic. But with respect to the with respect to the question, what would happen if Panama was completely submerged? And I think that's a fascinating thought prospect.
Okay.
One of the things that I was looking into was ocean currents. And in order for the ocean currents to change, I think we have to go the other direction with the question, which I figure we'll do in a little bit. But
that's fine, yeah.
If you were able to submerge Panama, then it would do quite a lot to the ocean currents because it would reconnect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. So that would be interesting. Also catastrophic. I mean, this whole question's catastrophic. I guess I should just...
Well, yeah.
Yes. If it goes to the extreme either way, I think humanity and society will adapt in very bad, violent ways. That's like the start of my answer, unfortunately. But peaceful solutions just mass migration, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to move to the new coasts, I suppose.
Yeah.
Whichever way they go.
And a lot of the biggest cities in the world are on the seashore. I'm thinking of things like New York City and Miami. And
oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at the whole eastern seaboard kind of going away.
Well, yeah, the middle of most countries is more farmland and rural things.
Yeah.
Mainly because, as Brian pointed out, the trade is all centered around coasts.
Mm-hmm.
So descending into
madness.
Violence and civilization collapsing, that's the illusion there. I started thinking about this question from a less scientific angle, but the first place my brain went was either the Mad Max franchise or Kevin Costner's Waterworld.
Those are Waterworld again.
I did, in fact, write Waterworld in my notes and circle it. Very scientific.
Very scientific. The human race would mutate, and some people would have gills, and they would be killed like the X-Men, right?
Mm-hmm.
I went on a bit of a tangent, but I do think that it ultimately wraps back around. But that is that Waterworld and Mad Max trying to create a civilization to see what a society would be like if the entire planet was like this kind of gets to the same problem I have with a lot of space operas, which is that if you, in like a space opera, my primary example of a space opera is Mass Effect. But there are plenty other ones, but a lot of times they're depicted as like epic traveling stories, and the characters will go to a planet and they'll go to like one area on a planet, and it'll be a desert. And that's the desert planet. Or they'll go to the aquatic city, and that's the aquatic planet. And I keep thinking, like, Earth has places that are like that, like all over the place. So if you look at the Mad Max universe, well, we have
desert planet.
They're on desert planet, but we had like the Wild West, and we have the Mojave Desert and the Sahara Desert. And then Waterworld, I found fewer things from media to reference, but one I thought of was like Moana is a film that takes place, it takes place in the Hawaii area. But the way that film works is the ocean faring civilization is the whole world of that story.
Yeah.
And so it made me kind of wonder if the entire planet really was like that. And you touched a little bit on growing crops and stuff. That's the sort of stuff I thought of is how would that make stuff outside of our ecosystem accessible, or would that make all ecosystems collapse? even beyond what we see in our little local area, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I mean, without any land, you can't farm. So
Right.
right up front, yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, I think part of that starts to get to like what has caused this shift, and it's like
Yeah.
if it was superheat or something like that, or super cold, then yeah, it probably is going to be harsher. Or if it was a wizard, you know,
Or if it was a wizard.
then maybe the wizard just did this one thing, and then how is that affecting it?
Yeah,
I was also
yeah.
trying to look up like an anti-topographical map of like how deep
Oh, okay.
is the water near all the coastal cities.
Mhm.
I was unable to find this information. I am sure it varies wildly, but I was wondering, like, say the ocean sunk and went down 130 meters.
Mm.
How far would New York City be from the new coast?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And that's all like salt. That's all salted
Right.
land in
Yeah.
between the city and the coast. And then I was on a Wikipedia deep dive for crops you can grow with salted land. I was like, okay, this might be the
What
wrong
are they?
direction. So this is not surprising. The Netherlands has done research on this. There are some, like, you can grow a little bit like, staples like potato, carrot. There are some like varietals that are a little more resistant to it. But then there's a thing called quail bush that gets like 90% yield off of salt water seawater as it does with fresh water.
Famously where quails come from.
Yes, maybe. But then significantly, like, sheep can just eat that instead of alfalfa or whatever you want to feed them.
Interesting.
So yeah, that region might be better for growing animals than it would be for growing vegetables we can eat.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was interesting.
I'd be interested in this topographical map that you say you were trying to find. The idea of, because we have lakes and we have seas and like other landlocked bodies of water, that how would the ocean, like, we would have probably other lakes in the new land that some of it is water that was already there anyway. I don't know. I'm interested in seeing a map of the future world where all of the water has evaporated from Earth.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at.
I mean, I think that would be really cool. Yeah.
Because famously, the Bering Strait would become walkable again.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's, I think Doggerland is the land that used to exist that connected Europe and England, and people did live in. They have found evidence for that, and it was forested. So all that would become newly walkable.
Yeah.
Southeast Asia / Oceania would become walkable.
Yeah. Actually, I heard that there are Australian Aboriginal legends about them walking from Asia to Australia. And these are like oral traditions, and they think that these are accurate for how they arrived in Australia at the time, was that the sea level was much lower and they were able to just make that crossing. Which, I mean, same with Alaska, like you said. We were during the end of the last ice age, the sea level was much lower, and so humans were able to walk.
Well,
yeah.
I want to touch on one thing that. So in thinking about the Mad Max and Waterworld, which is, I will tie it back to how civilization would work. I thought about, in both of those ideas, and in fact, a lot of this harkens to post-apocalyptia, which is always hundreds of years at least beyond the collapse of our known civilization. So the idea that the world has already crumbled, or the human world anyway, has already crumbled by the time we get to this situation. And that's believable as a story, because for the world to get to that state naturally would take a very, very long time, as far as I understand it.
One would hope.
Right? But if somehow it didn't take that long, or in some other scenario where civilization maintained and didn't collapse, I think it's interesting to explore with today's technology, the internet and long distance communication, essentially globalization, would that make it easier? I feel like that would make it easier than in, say, an example like Waterworld, where people are isolated and tribal. I don't know that we would really have that, because we can still communicate with people across the world in that scenario.
Yeah.
And I think, like, say we got more land, maybe we could develop enough, we'd have to build more trains and stuff like that, because if boats no longer got where we needed them to get to.
Yeah.
So yeah, society might be able to hold on long enough to then get back working.
Yeah.
And if they could just keep enough computers alive and someone downloaded Wikipedia, that would be really helpful to, like,
as long as we have Wikipedia, civilization will not collapse.
It would help with science, at least.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's another one of those cases where it'd be really interesting to see where the new shorelines would end up. Because I think, to an extent, assuming that there are some, they would have to be able to do shipping across the ocean. Because I think that, especially between, like the East Coast of the United States and Europe, it would be really impractical. I think there would be a point where you could ship by land through Alaska and around, but that would be, all the way around the back half of the planet. And so I think it would be really interesting to see, would they, like, build just these small shipping harbors, or maybe like large shipping harbors, independent of cities, or would, like, cities spring up around these harbors? I just don't know. And I think it'd be interesting to see where these harbors ended up.
Yeah. I'm sure some sort of city would eventually spring up, but yeah, would they use a train to get stuff from the harbor to the current cities?
Yeah.
Probably for a while anyway, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if this is sidestepping the question or not. I don't intend it to be, but I'm thinking of, like, how would the world lose water, because we have the water cycle. So in a situation where there's more land than water, I'm thinking humans would almost certainly come up with artificial containment system for water, and we would have, like, man-made water structures.
Yeah.
Well, as I said earlier, a wizard clearly did it.
A wizard, yes.
I was also thinking, like, the natural way would be what? Really cold, and it all freezes.
Okay, yeah.
At the polar sides, which lowers the ocean level. Or if a mad scientist vacuums it into space, maybe?
We send it to the moon.
Make a moon swimming pool.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not opposed to saying a wizard could have done it for this hypothetical, so that's fair.
Yeah.
I think it's also interesting because that reminds me of a thing that we sort of are still in the process of trying to figure out if it happened or not, called Snowball Earth. And this was something that happened, I think it was around 600, 700 million years ago, before multicellular life existed, where the theory goes is that the entire planet, the temperature dropped low enough that the entire planet basically froze. And there are some competing theories where, was it the entire planet covered in a sheet of ice, or was there a thin strip around the equator where there was still some water? But basically, that kind of makes me think of that, where not in a way that's sort of the same, where you don't have any oceans for shipping and you don't really have any arable land or anything like that. But I think Snowball Earth is a really interesting concept that is different than what we're talking about, but not all that far removed.
Well, that kind of made me think that this is conceivable to still answer this question if we were to go to, say, a desert planet, because we would still have to construct some sort of civilization in that scenario.
Yeah.
So you're saying the answer is that society would build a lot of monster trucks and play guitars on them and stuff like that.
I mean, one can only hope, right?
Yeah.
I did look a little bit at the Wasteland weekend in the Mojave Desert, and I have seen footage of people doing this, and while I think it looks interesting, it's essentially a LARP that is crossing Fallout and Mad Max and all sorts of desert punk type things, and I have come to the very staunch conclusion that I would never try this because I would be too hot and I would want to take a shower.
Yeah, and then occasionally you see them like they get rained out because it does their once every 5 years rain while they happen to be there, and it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
On the other side, if more water, Maldives is scared of this currently, and they are building a floating city, apparently, where they are going to try to house 20,000 people, which is very something I have seen in RPGs and stuff like that. And seems, I hope it works for them. It seems cool.
I love the concept of a floating city, really.
I mean, Venice is essentially that, which is really neat. Venice is sinking, but they built Venice on a huge series of wooden posts that have petrified. And that's really cool. I don't know.
I think that is pretty
like Venice.
Neat. Yeah. The other thing I was looking at, speaking of deserts, was the Mid-Pangea Desert. And basically what happened is that after a certain amount of land basically between you and the ocean, there's really not that much water, moisture in the atmosphere anymore. And so the center of the continent got very dry, very, very comparable to something like the outback or something like that. And this is something, I mean, we see this on continents now, and the continents that we have now are not nearly as big as Pangaea was, obviously. But if you look at the Great Plains in the central United States, not a desert, but still pretty arid. We see this with things like the Gobi Desert in the center of Asia. We see this with the outback, although the outback seems like it's a slightly different case because it's kind of a big desert, and it sort of stretches to the edges of the continent in a lot of places. But if we had less water, we would probably see a lot of these deserts expand in area. And I think that would be very detrimental to a lot of the lifestyles of the people who live there. It would be detrimental to things like crops and whatnot. But I don't know, I just thought the idea of the Central Pangaea Desert was probably worth bringing up because that I feel like is probably the closest in history that we get to something like, a dramatic drop in sea level.
Well, and that's also interesting because as the supercontinents have expanded, we then are on the continents we have now, but that kind of shows the trajectory is that it's more likely we will be on smaller land masses with more water separating them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as far as I can tell. Although, because we also lost Antarctica was part of the supercontinent, and then we lost it to the ice essentially.
Yeah.
Kind of sad to think about it that way.
Stealing our Antarctica.
Yeah. R.I.P. It seems like if we got way, way, way more water and it was like Waterworld, we would have to just get really comfortable eating a lot of fish, I suppose. Right? That would be the big thing, and
grow our tolerance to mercury.
Yeah. So floating cities and seafood every day. That's my answer for this one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be upset about more lobster. I mean, I like a lobster.
I think it's also worth bringing up that, and I think that this came up earlier, but I feel like even if we had more land, and granted, a lot of this land, like you said, would be salty and kind of useless at first. But I think that people would eventually start fighting over the new territory because we would have to redraw all of our maps. So, where do these lines continue? A lot of the lines that we have on our maps right now follow natural borders. And so a lot of the natural borders sort of end at the sea, like river. I feel like a river might work itself out somehow if we were using a river as a border, but a mountain range as a border wouldn't work anymore because the mountains kind of end at the sea.
Sure.
Yeah. Or yes, if again, I don't know how deep the water between them is, but if China, Japan, and Korea were suddenly connected by land, I don't know that would go great for geopolitics,
Yeah.
I was going to say England and France, but they already had border war, weirdly.
Everybody's had border wars.
But I think they'd be okay now. I think they would work it out, maybe. But yeah, other places maybe not so much.
Yeah. The last thing I was thinking about, and I don't know that there would really be anything left at this point, but when humans migrated quite a lot during the last ice age, there's a lot of evidence that sort of points to them probably following coastlines. And so the thing I was thinking about was just the idea that there might be some sort of archaeological benefit to being able to find these coastlines again. Now, again, they've been under salty water for 10,000 years or whatever, so I really just don't know if there would be anything left, but I think it's kind of a compelling idea. Or maybe even like paleological stuff, not even just archaeological. So, I don't know, finding all the neat stuff that was lost to time when the ocean levels rose might not be possible, but kind of a fun idea.
Could be a fun supervillain in a story is a obsessed archaeologist who's trying to lower the sea levels so he can find new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to cure cancer. I want to turn people into dinosaurs.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, somewhat topical to this first question, I think we need to move on to question 2. And question 2 comes to us from David Jones. Is there life on Mars?
Well, getting there will be a fantastic voyage.
So question 3 this week is, what would happen if you drank from the Fountain of Youth too many times?
Oh, what if all the oceans became the Fountain of Youth?
That we'd have to solve this question to figure out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you shouldn't really drink salt water, so if the oceans were the Fountain of Youth, then it's probably fine.
Well, they have to be a fountain, right?
Oh, true. Good point.
All right. So before I get into the science question or the different ways of answering this question, I hope that you'll indulge me for a moment because I just found this interesting. I decided to do some research into the history of the myth of the Fountain of Youth, which also helped to come up with some other ways to answer the question. So I'm just gonna start here. So there are a lot of early accounts in literature that mention the water of life, which has in various different cultures different curative properties, such as healing disease or making you healthy. Herodotus mentions the land of the Macrobians, which were a fictional people known for their exceptional longevity. And in the story, the king told some travelers that most of them lived to be about 120 or even older, and discussed a very strict diet, but also led these people to this fountain where they washed themselves, and it says their flesh became all glossy and sleek as if they had bathed in oil, and a scent came from the spring like that of violets. The water was so weak, they said, that nothing would float in it, neither wood nor any lighter substance, but all went to the bottom. If the account of this fountain were true, it would be their constant use of this water that made them so long-lived. And it's interesting, they don't drink this water, they bathe in it.
Interesting.
In the Alexander romances, the fictional chronicles of the Alexander the Great's various fantastical adventures, one of the stories that he recounts is searching the land of darkness for the water of life. And this is likely some region near modern-day Turkey, but also it's a legend and probably doesn't matter. But this story was so popular in the East that it inspired a lot of medieval stories, including Arthurian legend, and potentially influenced stories of the quest for the Holy Grail. The Water of Life story from Alexander was very well known in Spain, and we were talking about border wars earlier. It would have been known to Spanish explorers as they began charting the Americas. So the most famous account of the Fountain of Youth comes from the adventures of Ponce de Leon, in which Spain learned about a place called Bimini, I think is how it's pronounced. From the people.
I've heard it pronounced Bimini, but it might be a
Bimini?
different
Okay.
thing.
I could be wrong. No, it's related to the Bahamas.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think it's Bimini, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Well, so they learned about this land, this mythical land from the people of Cuba and Puerto Rico, and it was described as a land of wealth and prosperity, which became conflated with the Fountain of Youth legends. And these people were probably talking about the land occupied by the Maya, but by the time Ponce de Leon was there, they just associated it with the Bahamas because that's how various texts seem to translate it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting thing that I learned, Ponce de Leon didn't actually write about the Fountain of Youth in any of his journals, but a guy called Oviedo wrote about Ponce de Leon 14 years after he died and said he was looking for Bimini to regain his youthfulness, and many scholars believe that Oviedo wrote this deliberately to make Ponce de Leon look foolish in the eyes of the courts, which isn't that far-fetched of a thing for 16th century explorers to do.
Yeah.
So that's a brief synopsis of our historical accounts of the search for the fountain.
I think that's really interesting, especially just because the legends are, I don't want to say like varied, because there's like a consistency to them, but it's one of those things where I feel like there were a lot of different people reporting on similar legends in a very different way.
Well, it really just shows the quest for eternal youth is a very human thing.
Yeah. When I was reading about this, it was also linking to other stuff I hadn't connected, but makes sense. The elixir of life is the other, like, it's basically a fountain of youth. It was just in portable form. I also had never thought about the fountain of youth that much, and it is a pretty long Wikipedia page that is interesting. And I realized in my brain, I was thinking that it was somewhere like in Mesoamerica, and then I was like, I was thinking of El Dorado. Similar, similar
timeline,
foolish quest,
right.
But because I was also trying to look up, the different effects the Fountain of Youth can have. Which I guess to my mind it would be like the two main ones would be it makes you young, or it gives you long life.
Let me respond to that real quick, because I have three phrases that I kept getting hung up on, because eternal youth, eternal life, and restoring youth are three pretty different things. So like eternal life, that's pretty self-explanatory, but if you don't like if you still get old, that might not be desirable.
That becomes a nightmare.
That becomes a nightmare, right? And that's the cicada guy whose name I can't remember off the top of my head. But
Franz Kafka?
No.
That was cockroach.
The cicada is connected to, I think it's a Greek myth about a person who wanted to live forever, and is believed that the cicada is what he ultimately shriveled up into. And I can't remember. I'm going to get letters about this. I can't remember off the top of my head which god cursed him with this. But so also eternal youth and restoring youth present some problems. Eternal youth, I can understand if it's like a Peter Pan scenario, you just never grow up. But at what point do you stop developing? And if you drink from the Fountain of Youth, does it just like put you at the save state of your body? Like you go back to how you were when you were 25. Like, I don't know. And then restoring youth is the first angle I thought of before I went down the rabbit hole of Ponce de Leon. And that is, if you keep getting younger, how does that ultimately result?
Right. Because, I mean, I feel like if you think about all the different times that this has been portrayed in media, where the thing that came to mind for me was Futurama.
Okay.
Because there was the episode where I can't remember if it was just called the Fountain of Youth, but there was the Space Fountain of Youth. And all of the characters get turned into kids except for Farnsworth, who ends up like around 50 years old or so. And basically the end result, if you fall into the Fountain of Youth, is that you eventually just de-age to death. and you turn into a baby, and then you turn into a fetus, and then that's the end of your life. So, because you die. There's also the Fountain of Aging, which fixed all of them.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the good Futurama explanation there.
Yeah. Or wait, I can't remember if there was a Fountain of Youth that made them young, or if it was something else that made them young, and they had to find the Fountain of Aging. But at any rate, they found the Fountain of Aging and fixed all of the problems. So, but
I didn't think of this before, but that makes me think of Benjamin Button, which is a movie that it's there.
I feel like Benjamin Button is way more like kind of fun that it exists for us to talk about culturally than it is a good movie to watch.
Yeah, I agree with that synopsis for sure. It fits directly kind of into this topic, at least, in that a fundamental problem I had with that movie was he's supposed to be aging in reverse, except he is born the size of a baby who just looks like an old man.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets bigger and then goes through his life and then turns into a baby again.
Yeah.
But then what happens? Like, does he, and here's where I'm going with, if you keep getting younger and younger and like you're saying, eventually turning into a fetus, do you split into separate gametes? Like, how does that?
I was going to say, it is the end state is the egg and sperm separating, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the
Right.
true end.
Yeah.
That's when it's not you anymore, right?
Yeah, but it seems like you would probably die way before that, right?
I would assume, yeah.
Let's quit drinking that water.
Yeah. I was thinking it would be really interesting if there was the possibility that eventually you sort of develop a tolerance to the Fountain of Youth, where,
Okay.
like, the first time that you drink from it, I don't know, you de-age 10 years or something like that. And then after you keep doing this for a while, then eventually your body sort of just accepts it as water, effectively. And,
Ooh.
you de-age 5 years, and then 2 years, and then eventually it just stops working on you, and then that's that.
And then you develop a tolerance, and you'd need to get just enough of the Fountain of Youth just to feel normal.
Yeah, just to
It
feel
turns
like
into
you're
a drug.
38 again.
Yeah.
This is mostly off topic, but while I was reading about these, of course, like many other stories and myths, the first sort of connected version is from Gilgamesh. And
Yeah.
I just thought it was so funny reading about how he was scared of death and he wanted to conquer death. And so he went to some god who was immortal. And the god was like, well, if you can stay awake for this many years, and then blah, blah, blah. And he like told a not that long of a story, and Gilgamesh fell asleep as soon as he finished telling the story. And the god's like, what are you doing, dude? And why is that story so silly? And then he like went and found a plant in the bottom of the ocean that would make him immortal. And
it's the man becomes young again plant or something like that.
Yeah, and then that goes poorly for him too. So what I'm saying is I want them to make a high budget, like slapstick Gilgamesh.
I think
comedy.
I would love that, honestly.
Yeah.
It's got to be a series, but it's also got to be goofy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're saying Goofy's there. Donald Duck's there.
That's not what I was saying, but now I want there to be a Muppet Gilgamesh.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be kind of amazing. Another thing I thought would be really entertaining is if you're like when you drink from the Fountain of Youth, if you didn't necessarily de-age the same amount every time and it was a roulette, like I feel like there would have to be an upper bound on this, otherwise it would be too risky. But I don't know, the first time you drink from it, it's like 3 years, and then the next time you drink from it, it's like 20 years. And I think that would be just kind of fun because you never know what you're going to get. It's just whatever the fountain is feeling today is how far back you go.
Oh, so it's not measurable. It's just like every time you drink any amount, it just is random.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I like
I don't know what
that.
mechanism would cause that, but the idea is very funny, and I feel like that's an untapped potential for stories.
Well, the last thing what that made me think of, speaking of stories, and the last thing that I actually wrote down in my notes is I had to bring up Batman. Drinking too much from the Fountain of Youth kind of makes me think of this addictive quality that it may have, and Batman, the Batman universe, has used this idea in what they call the Lazarus Pit, which doesn't quite bring you back to life as much every time you use it. So the more immortal you want to be, the more dependent on the Lazarus Pit you become.
That makes sense.
So it could be something like that.
Mm-hmm.
They also bathe in it and don't drink it.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that would make a lot more sense, really, because when you're drinking something, I guess, it's being absorbed by your body, I suppose, but just, I don't know, I feel like there's overall coverage.
Yeah.
You talking about them bathing, and it reminded me that a lot of the Fountain of Youth depictions, they just bathe, they don't drink. And in one of the descriptions of it, from like the late medieval or maybe Renaissance era, it was said that they, in this like frieze or sculpture, they like bring old people into the fountain, they strip them, and then it shows them young and dressed fashionably outside the fountain.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And so if we ask for the definition of too much Fountain of Youth, maybe it's that you get too fashionable, you know?
Oh, yeah.
You're just too trendy.
Yeah.
Rest of the world can't keep up.
I think it's interesting to think about how the Fountain of Youth works,
Sure.
because I don't have any idea at all.
Well, the idea that it's a fountain that you bathe in, and the Herodotus mentioning that their skin became oily and stuff made me think of like beauty treatments. And there are places where people get the mud from like a specific lake or stream or something, and they'll put that on their skin, and it's supposed to tighten up your skin, and that's in beauty standards, that's youthfulness, that's looking younger.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't actually make you live 120 plus years, but is it possible maybe that some of those legends were based on the fact that people did apply this mud or clay to their skin and then feel like their skin was healthier?
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And I think that there's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of that still in existence. Because, I mean, you go to a spa and you get, whatever spa treatments you get, the mud, the massage, the soak in the hot tub, that sort of thing. And you just feel good. You feel better.
It's therapeutic.
Yeah. Even if it doesn't actually de-age you, you just kind of feel better.
So what happens if you do that too much? That's the question. You're too relaxed.
You get trench foot.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we solved it.
That's the answer. You bathe in the Fountain of Youth for too long, you get trench foot.
Oh, man. The other thing that I was thinking of is just how entertaining it would be to see all the different ways that somebody would monetize this. And
oh, yeah.
I feel like there would be a really big market for people smuggling the water out somehow. And then, I didn't even think about this, but so, you drink the water. Does your pee also de-age people? What a stupid thought. I wish I hadn't had it, to be fair.
It's still the same water, so it depends if you absorb the whatever nutrients yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like the worst criminal defense argument in the world.
Yeah. I just love the idea of people smuggling this water out of the Fountain of Youth and then selling it on eBay.
Well, there is is it a national park, or it's some tourist attraction in Florida, which is the Fountain of Youth Park. And I didn't really research that too heavily, but they may sell water there. I don't know. Like in if I were running that park, I would sell like specialty bottles of water and say it's from the Fountain of Youth, and it would be a novelty, but
yeah.
Surely they do. And
Surely they do.
I mean, that's probably what's keeping them afloat, if I had to guess. I was also thinking about the other type of fountain of youth that just makes you live longer starting at the point that you're at. You know, like it makes
So
you
it's just, like,
immortal
stops
from
you.
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that, like, you know, there's plenty of stories about why that eventually becomes unfun.
Death becomes her.
Yeah.
I think he's the DC character, Mr. Immortal, is all about that.
The exploration of why immortality would actually be terrible is a really
Mhm.
fascinating subject to me.
Yeah. Well, and that
Yeah.
also sort of leads back to the idea of if it's something where it just sort of de-ages you, then you don't have to be immortal. You just live a little longer. And then when you're sick of being de-aged, you just let nature take its course.
That's fair.
And then so this is Brian's nerd corner for a second. The rest of this has been jock discussion, so I gotta
okay.
bring it back to the nerd stuff.
Because mentioning Batman, that's the most.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He's kind of a jock, right?
He's more athletic
mixed martial
than me.
arts or something.
Batman is a jock. Fans of Batman typically aren't.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's fair. There's a character in the Warhammer setting named Gotrek who is what is called a Slayer, and they're like people who have done great dishonor, and it is their new mission in life to die bravely, essentially. And so they have to fight. They can't purposefully lose or something. And so Gotrek is the best and the worst Slayer because he never loses. He hasn't lost a fight despite his best attempts. So I was thinking about how like the worst thing someone could do to him would be to give him the fountain of youth that just makes you live forever from this point. Because then it's like he could just be on this cursed mission forever.
That's just a troll right
and
there.
There's a bunch of books about him, so it would not surprise me if that was one of the plots in one of them.
Okay. It's interesting. That is a fandom I know. I think nothing about Warhammer.
That's probably for the best. I wish I didn't.
Speaking of like outside franchises that have interesting takes on this kind of thing, there was DuckTales, where where the Fountain of Youth had been turned into, I should say they filled a swimming pool with the water from the Fountain of Youth. And the way that the water from the Fountain of Youth worked is that it would age other people when they were in it. And then when you drink the water, you get that essence to, rejuvenate yourself.
Ooh.
And so
I don't want to think about drinking their juices.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
so
It's
weird.
kind of disgusting when you stop to think about it. But it was an interesting take on that, where it's because we were talking about how people would bathe in the Fountain of Youth and they would get rejuvenated. And it's sort of the opposite of that, where you would bathe in it and it would suck away your life force. And then if you drank it, then that's what would rejuvenate you.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense in the sort of like the vulture stealing youth kind of way. And I like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of a vampire move.
Yeah. I don't want to drink water that people have bathed in, but vampires are different. So that's
it's a swimming pool. It's not like they're like taking a bath in it.
Vampires are canonically nasty with it, so
that's true.
They do like that.
That is true. They're all about that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, listeners, let us know. On that note, I think is a good time to move on. So let us know this week what would happen if the land to Fountain of Youth water balance on Earth shifted.
Yeah.
I don't know. If you have thoughts on that or a better thing that I should have said or anything else, you can email us at feedback@vaguelyscientific.com, or you can comment on our blog on the website, or you can like us on Facebook, or you can comment on our YouTube stream. Hey, Jim, where do we get all these wacky questions?
We get them from you, the listener, and if you have a question that needs to be answered in a vaguely scientific manner, please email us at questions@vaguelyscientific.com. If you want to get our episodes the minute that they're released, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and all the other great places where cool podcasts like to hang out. And subscribing and leaving feedback really helps us out, and so does telling your friends.
Tell all your friends.
Our vaguely musical intro is composed by Anthony Pizzelli, and don't forget to check out our merch store over at vaguelyscientific.threadless.com. It's a new year, so just redo all your life with vaguely scientific stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, throw out all your old mugs and t-shirts and skateboards and buy new ones with our stuff on it.
Buy those skateboards.
Yeah.
So thank you to Brian for talking to us this week.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. For Vaguely Scientific, I am Derek.
I'm Jim.
I've been Brian.
And in Morse code, it would be ... dash dash ...
Toodaloo? Yeah, toodaloo.
See ya.
What if we turned all the people into water?
Well, they're already mostly water. So, are you suggesting vaporizing most of the human race?
I mean, we don't have to. I was just
Okay.
thinking out loud.
What
It's
is?
just
Thinking out loud.